It is truly an honor for me to be here with all of you at your anniversary celebration, and then to deliver a webinar to all of the Pakistani colleagues and also ELT colleagues in the world. So I'm going to start sharing screen and then start my talk. I cannot share screen. Maybe you have to change. You have to stop sharing screen or something.
Yes,
I will stop screen.
Yes,
oh, now
yes.
I can now. Yes,
Yep.
now I can. Good. Okay. Yes. Okay. Everybody can see the screen?
Yep. Perfect.
Okay. Thank you so much. Okay. Today my talk is on critical thinking in the 21st century ELT field. Really briefly look at the research and offer some praxis ideas. Okay. I'm going to focus on these 4 talking points. The first one is to define critical thinking. What is critical thinking? And then really looking at the major research on critical thinking in the ELT field. And then look at the roles of critical thinking among critical skills for the 21st century and beyond. What are the roles that critical thinking plays in the 21st century skills and beyond in this? And then finally, I'm going to propose some suggested actions and also a pedagogical framework with some sample practices and also strategies for practitioners to take back. Hopefully you can apply in your teaching and also in your research. What is critical thinking? Lots of definitions, lots of scholars and give definitions about critical thinking. So I listed sample ideas about critical thinking. One of the more current and prominent definition is by Peter Facian, and he defined the critical thinking. I'm not going to read the other two, you can read it. He said it's a purposeful self-regulatory judgment which results in interpretation, analysis, evaluation, and inference, as well as explanation of the evidential, conceptual, methodological, criteriological, and contextual considerations upon which that judgment is based. And he has a lot of publications on critical thinking. So this is his definition. What I would like to kind of outline and then highlight the components. He mentioned that in his critical thinking module, there are 6 components: interpretation, analysis, evaluation, inference, explanation, self-regulation. And then each one, there are some sub-bullets. You can read it. And I want to ask you, take a look at this. What is hidden from this framework, or what is missing based on your understanding of critical thinking? And take a look, think about this, pause for a little while. To me, what I feel, let me move this up, it's the action to the next level. Yes, we need to do interpretation, we need to inference, we need to do analysis, we explain self-regulatory evaluation. Then what? What we need to do is the action part, the constructive problem solving, critical thinking for constructive changes. I feel that, this part, if that can highlight it in this framework, that would be really much, much stronger. Somebody there, I cannot move. Let me see what's going on. Okay. Because why? Education is not value free. We know that. Education is embedded in a social context. So let's look at the major research discussions on critical thinking in TESOL, in English language teaching field. Many of you probably are very familiar with the article by Dwight Atkinson, published in 1997, A Critical Approach to Critical Thinking in TESOL. This article really bring critical thinking and then really talking about in TESOL field, how critical thinking played there. He brought up a very important point is we have to contextualize critical thinking, not just use critical thinking to solve classroom problems, to solve reading problems or the writing problems. And that article brought out some important points and also generated heated discussions, even debate about the role of critical thinking. And then as a result of that, I think the critical thinking kind of becomes more kind of center focus in a way in the ELT research. More and more research studies kind of focus on critical thinking. Today, I don't have time to outline each one of them. I listed some studies that you can check. What I feel that based on the Dwight Atkinson's article, really, and then the important point he brought it out is critical thinking for social change in the 21st century. That is super important. Why? Scholars who are in the field, especially from a critical pedagogy perspective, they define critical thinking both as a democratic learning process and the skills in examining power relations, social equality, and other critical issues in ELT. And more recent studies focused on the role of critical thinking in the 21st century skills and also culturally responsive teaching. How many of you have heard culturally responsive teaching pedagogical framework? And this is something that really I have a passion for that. And that's, I want to kind of spend more time to talk about critical thinking and also culturally responsive teaching. So we talked about research and also I brought out the importance of critical thinking. Let's think about what is the role of critical thinking among all critical skills for the 21st century and beyond. I came to Pakistan, I think in 2017, and then to Karachi, and then we had a conference, SPELT conference. I talked about 21st century skills. This is a book that influenced me tremendously. It's by Trilling and Fado, The 21st Century Skills, Learning for Life in Our Times. In his book, they outline the 7 C's, critical thinking and doing. These are the components that we added. These are the 7 C's: creativity, innovation, collaboration, cross-cultural understanding, communication, computing, ICT literacy, and career self, and learning self-reliance. These are the 7 C's, the skills people define as 21st century skills. That's the master skill for our 21st century and beyond. If we categorize that, the 7 C's, I like Maslow's category, really looking at that 4 categories of 21st century skills: ways of thinking, ways of working, tools for working, skills for living in the world. But if you look at all this, creativity, critical thinking, problem solving, decision making, learning, everything that we want to see, critical thinking is kind of integrated in all 7 C's. That element is there. If you also look at it, citizenship, life and careers, personal social responsibilities, all this really required us to have critical thinking skills. So why critical thinking skills for social, change important in the 21st century learning? Let me outline this. we are in pandemic. That's a worldwide pandemic. It's not just one region, one country. It's all over the world. The pandemic has significantly changed the way we live and work. It has significantly changed the way we teach our students as well. Students have all been forced to learn online or remotely. Even now, we started to have some face-to-face interactions, but still, online learning, the component that plays a very important role. As we cope with the many pandemic disruptions and the fight against COVID fatigue, we teachers must build the right mindset, competence, and skills to face new challenges and continue to become comfortable with the new realities that define our professional and social lives. That's the influence of pandemic. So what's the implication for our ELT field then? In our field, that all schools will need to be structured in ways that will allow for flexibility and encourage critical thinking, creativity, innovation during challenging times. And also, we educators need to develop new approaches to ensure multiple modes of learning and support all students. Because during pandemic, the student, especially from underprivileged background, they are left behind. So we have to make sure we support all students, not just some students. Also, developing 21st century skills, including critical thinking skills, needs to go beyond English language skills, not just English. There are so many things that beyond just the language to say. We also have to fully utilize critical thinking across the curriculum for constructive changes. Society change, curriculum change, or any change. And then to bring equity and access to quality education as part of our 21st century education policy priorities, and that needs to be implemented in every classroom. That's the implication for the ELT field. Now I'm going to talk about why equity and access must be a top priority for the 21st century post-pandemic education. Why we have to do that? So let's take a look at here. This is the report, Pearson 2017 report. They did a projection about the future skills employment in 2030, which will be another 19 years from now. They identified 7 mega trends. One of the trends is increasing inequality. The haves and have-nots, the ones who have access to things versus the ones who have limited access. The gap is getting bigger and bigger. And then globally, take a look at the data from UNESCO Institute for Statistics. Access is not equal. Worldwide, 258.4 million children, adolescents, and the youth are out of school. That's not a small number. It's huge. What is more concerning is the red and the pink part. Take a look at here. The upper secondary age, that's adolescent and youth. About 137.8 million, those people are out of school. More than 50% of the children in the world are not in school. This is adolescent and youth. This is alarming, very concerning. That can be a social problem. You can see access is definitely not equal. Using our critical thinking skills, look at the data. Last year, UNESCO produced another report looking at the gender gap during pandemic-related school closures. They had a detailed report. What I saw here is 11 million girls more than 11 million girls are at the risk of not going back to school or not be able to go back to school. That's also very, very concerning. What does this imply? Youth, adolescents, maybe by the time we're trying to address the issue, they will be too old for public schools, but too young to go to university or not ready for university. It's the need for adult basic education. Such needs, it's also a serious need in United States, the so-called developed countries, one of the richest countries in the world. This is the data that from World Education Organization. High school dropout every year, about 2 million drop out of high school. They join 5.5 million youth from age 16 to 24, neither enrolled in school nor working. Working poor, or those looking for jobs in the United States, 64% of adults with low academic skills are employed. And then immigrants, that's another projection. By 2030, about 1 in every 5 US workers will be an immigrant with limited English skills. You can see the need for adult basic education to bring these people back to school, to bring the skills, to help them develop the skills necessary for the society so that they can stay competitive in our 21st century workforce and in this society. That's very concerning. Okay, I see some hands, and then if you have questions, hold off, and then towards the end we will address those questions. However, in research, in TESOL, English language teaching research, or in any other research, adult basic education is not on the agenda. We see a little research about that. We don't see program development focused on adult basic education. That we should really pay attention to that. Otherwise, sooner or later will be a huge society problem. Another need is for higher education. We know higher education is a key driver for new economy, new knowledge economy. And also, people need to have higher education in order to be competitive in the 21st century. However, we know the needs are not equal to access. Access are not equal to equity. When we talk about access, diversity, equality, equity, they are totally different things. They are not the same. Many people think diversity, we heard of diversity a lot. Oh, diversity is not the goal. We should not strive for that. Diversity is a means to achieve equity. Equity is the one that we need to achieve. Giving access is an important first step, but access doesn't guarantee equality. Equality means starting like the leveling the playing field. Everybody has the equal opportunity here. Did you see the middle picture I saw here? Some people, they can reach the fruit, but even though you equal the leveling the playing field, you treated everybody the same, the so-called quote unquote, I treat all students the same. That's very problematic. Some students will not be able to reach the fruit, become successful. What we need to achieve is equity. Equity means students start from different background, different starting points, but we provide the right curriculum, the right support, and then to help all students to be successful. That is the goal we need to achieve. That's for equity. That's for equity, yes. So how can we achieve equity? So I'm going to propose some actions for change, and I'm going to suggest a critical thinking pedagogical framework, and also along with some strategies that teachers can use to apply this, to your classroom. Because the data I showed that really, shared a different perspective. If you want to do research, really looking at this like a critical pedagogical, a critical social society, political issues, and then construct your research projects, and then thinking about the pedagogical changes. First, we have to have a paradigm shift. When we talk about equity, historically, we always talk about the students' learning problems. It's a deficit mindset. Oh, my students are so not ready for university study. They are not motivated. They are not prepared. They don't do the assignment I told them to do. They don't listen. So these are the things traditionally educators, we are familiar with this kind of complaints. That's a deficit mindset. What we need to do, we need to really looking at that as our educational institutional learning problems. It's our institution, our system are not set up to help those students to really understand their niche, the way that they want to learn to help them be successful. We need to view that as our practitioners, our educators' learning problems, because we don't have the right strategies. We don't have the right mindset, not just strategies, to support all students to be successful. Rather than looking at as the learning problems of our students. It's not, because, and also we cannot just say, oh, I'm going to learn some games. I'm going to learn some strategies and I can use in the classroom. Not just adopt best practices. We have to shift our mindset to equity. And then we can address the access issues, the opportunity gap issues, the challenging curriculum gap issues. So this is a wonderful book, From Equity Talk to Equity Walk, looking at leading changes in higher education. That talks about the ways, how can we shift to have this paradigm shift, looking at institutional problems, the practitioners' problems, and then to help students be successful. Because of this equity asset-based education mindset that bring forward the cultural responsive teaching, the CRT pedagogy. CRT pedagogy is asset-based pedagogy, not deficit-based. This is not the same. I want to kind of gently caution that it's not the same as multicultural education or social justice education, even though they are closely related. CRT is about the building students' learning power, brain power, by improving information processing skills using culturally relevant, culturally sustainable, culturally responsive learning tools to help all students to be successful. It is grounded in social justice and a cognitive neuroscience. That is culturally responsive teaching. Because initially when I talk to people about the culturally responsive teaching, they think, oh, I'm going to teach culture. So I'm going to bring food from different cultures. I'm going to ask the people to wear different traditional costumes. I'm going to celebrate holidays. That's superficial. That is not culturally responsive teaching. And based on this, I'm also going to suggest the critical thinking across the curriculum pedagogical framework. This one is adapted from a framework of elements of effective instruction from Great Schools Partnership. That framework, I really like it, so I adapted it. This framework is grounded in culturally responsive teaching pedagogy to build the students' learning power and brain power. It is grounded in the understanding that students are more engaged and then invested in their learning when they feel they are safe, they are valued in their learning environment, and they understand what they are learning and why it matters to them. And not only matters to them at school and also for their future. And then they have the opportunity to practice, receive clear feedback on their work, and also engage in meaningful, complex thinking process and tasks, both independently and collaboratively. So this CRT pedagogical framework has 6 intertwined elements that instructional practices that complements and enhance one another. Okay, so these are the 6 elements: world, society, community. That's very important. That kind of also influence the learning environment that we have. Could be, the communities and also the classroom, the schools, everything, and also varied content and materials and methods, plus clear shared outcomes. Learning outcomes needs to be clear and shared with our learners, and then practice and feedback. Most importantly, critical thinking and problem solving. All these 6 components needs to be intertwined. They enhance each other. So that's the way that I see this pedagogical framework that should be implemented as instructional practice. And then based on this, and also we need to develop, students need to engage in culture responsive teaching, develop resilience. Resilience is another competence for 21st century skills, especially since the pandemic. And more educators and scholars really value resilience as one of the important 21st century skills. So resilience, actually, it's a very critical thinking. It's a very important factor of resilience. There are, this 7 components. Through resilience, critical thinking, you analyze information, inference, evaluate, explanation, self-regulation, observing interpretation that based on the Peter facing its framework. And then I added constructive problem solving. Has to be constructive problem solving. That's important component that needs to be in this framework, critical thinking across the curriculum pedagogical framework. Because 21st century critical thinking is thinking with depth, extending ideas, reasoning with logic, justifying claims, and thinking divergently, so develop effective solutions to solve problems and making constructive changes. Both a critical social practice and a set of cognitive, epistemological, meta-knowing skills and traits. We need to have both. A lot of critical thinking studies really focus on cognitive, meta-cognitive skills and traits, and somehow overlook the critical social practice that needs to be embedded as part of the critical thinking skills practice. Based on the CRT, cultural responsive teaching, and then critical thinking, it's fundamental. The framework I proposed, I really love that Zaretta hammers that the framework, that the book that I showed you earlier. We need to help students develop the academic mindset. I can succeed at this task, in this classroom, in this program. My ability and competence grow with my efforts. The work has value for me. They see the relevance of this assignment, this work that I do in the classroom, at school. I belong to this, not just community, academic community. I belong here. This is something that really, it's not superficial. That's critical, culturally responsive teaching. Not kumbaya, not food or holidays. This is something substantial. Academic mindset development. That's what we need to strive for. This one is also from Zaretta Hammond. She talked about the learning peak. I really liked this learning page. I got her permission to use this information, but I hope you don't change or adapt, because this is the way we learn. We go through this learning page. No matter what we do, we always do that. It's the academic mindset regulates emotions and manages negative self-talk. You know, we have to, when we hit the pit, that means the struggle, the challenges we hit. And then we should fall into the pit calmly and readily. And then we will be able to get out of the pit. That's called the productive struggle. And in Cohn's term, it's critical thinking, meta-strategic knowing. That's critical thinking skills integrated throughout the whole pit process. You start, oh, I don't understand. This is so hard, and I cannot do it, and this is stupid, and I want to quit. You hit a wall. You can either walk out, say, I quit. I'm not a university material. I quit. I'm not going to study. Or you can say, wait a minute. I get into the pit. Let me use some information processing strategies that will help me get out of the pit. So we make a meaning of the new learning. And then you try to think, what does this remind me of? What are the examples, or not examples, that I can use to relate to this challenge that I feel I don't understand? What is that? And how can all these pieces fit together? We are using this meta-strategic knowing, this meta-cognitive strategy to solve problems. Now I see, okay, that makes sense. I was right, I didn't give up, and I become successful. That's the framework we need to have. In order to do that, we also need to have resilience. Resilience is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, from toughness, from challenges. Critical thinking is an extremely important resilient factor. So I categorize resilience into 9 traits. You need to have A to I, awareness of strengths and assets. You need to have, what are your strengths, what are your assets. Be able to bounce back. When you hit the wall, went to the pit, bounce back, don't give up. Adaptable, trying to be flexible, adapt situation. Courageous and calm. When you fall into the pit, don't panic. Don't be frustrated or give up. Courageous and calm. You can do it. The can-do attitude later. Display passion-driven focus, and also have good emotion EQ management. That's so important. Foster a sense of personal agency. We talk about the teacher's identity agency, learner's agency. That is so important in developing resilience. And then be good at critical thinking, problem solving. The H stands for help others, reach out to others, not just me. It's I know you can do it, because we need to have a learning community to make everybody successful. Remember equity, and also you matter. I care for you. You matter to me. And then be insightful and resourceful. These are the 9 traits. Each one that we could elaborate a lot, but I don't have time. Some research findings, and then find that actually resilience is learnable and teachable. As we learn, we increase range of strategies, we can become more resilient. And all individuals have the power to transform and change. Students have the capacity to raise academic rigor, and that's important. And also our educators believe in our students' innate capacity, innate capability. We believe that they have the resilience. Everybody has critical thinking skills. That starts the changing process. Because whenever I hear my students say, oh, my students don't have critical thinking skills, I just cringe my teeth. I said, everybody has critical thinking skills. It's a matter, we educators, how can we foster, let them fully display their critical thinking skills? It's us. It's we don't know how to do that. And we, instead of saying we admit our weakness, we blame students for not being able to use their critical thinking skills. It's we have not find a way to let them fully display their critical thinking skills. That's something we need to work on this. So how can we develop those skills in the online settings? We know all this online work because I'm so glad that many of you are so familiar with Zoom, with all these online tools. And then in other countries, they don't have Zoom access. They use Google Meet. It's similar to Zoom. It's free, but smaller capacity. There are so many other things you can use online. You know, you can do breakout room discussions. I was telling, my facilitator, I have an activity planned for a breakout room, but because this is a webinar, that I cannot do breakout room, which is fine. And then all these tools you can use that in online learning. Padlet, I use a lot, Google Slides and all these things. Kahoot, and then the quizzes. YouTube is such an important tool that for teaching. There are a lot of materials in this book about critical thinking in the classroom. Open educational resources, OER. OER is a wonderful resource that you need to tap into because the materials are developed by educators. This is copyright free, and then you can use, adapt for free, as long as you use for educational purposes. You're not going to use it to benefit yourself. Say you want to publish a book or something, and then you want to sell something, and then use that. That's a no-no. But if you want to use for classroom teaching, for research purpose, perfectly fine. Go there to find resources. Gamification in education, music, all these things we can use to help students foster those skills. And there are more practices we can use for critical thinking skills and 21st century skills. I mentioned 7C and then resilience, all these skills. You can create a situation individually or in group setting. The student have to adapt to a given problem, not the kind of set in stone problem. And then you provide a variety of tools to use to solve new problems. I'm going to share some, examples later. And also you offer opportunities to create new ways of doing things. Instead of always doing the conventional way of doing things, find some new ways. Today we're going to do things differently to solve problems. And the student will be so excited and it will be more engaging. And then encouraging questioning techniques. So important. I've given out a lot of workshops on how to do questions and ask the questioning techniques. So, and hopefully in the future we can do that. And then also design rigorous. Project-based learning is not the conventional project that teachers give to students. Say, you finish this at the end of the quarter, you do a present. Totally different. Project-based learning. And then service learning projects that students relate to the community and meaningful learning, bring that into the classroom to encourage critical thinking and teamwork to solve problems. This is the framework from critical thinking, the PBL, the project-based learning. There's an organization, that's their logo. You can see how much significant content, 21st century skills, everything is included. These are the elements, components we need to think when we design activities for students to engage in. So I just share some. And then in my class, because I'm not teaching anymore, when I was teaching, the students, I have a lot of refugee immigrant students. I do teacher training. I also teach adult immigrant students, immigrant refugee students. We use project-based learning, digital, integrated digital English acceleration project, and also service learning project. These students, they only have like probably third grade elementary education. let alone not limited English skills, but through one semester, not only they really learn the good English skills, and then that's the idea framework. I don't have time to introduce those modules, how we design the programs and things. They learn not only language skills, digital literacy, and then information and technology, and all the 21st century skills they integrate. Now they create their PowerPoint, they do Google Slides, they do Google Doc, and do class presentations. And then they engage on campus doing project-based learning, look at the sustainability, helping do recycling and things. Fully engaged. All these skills we talked about, critical thinking, self-directed learning, and all these things fully demonstrated in those programs. Another another activity that you like, tic-tac-toe, that 9 grid, you can do tic-tac-toe, a simple way, just to give students alternative ways of exploring key ideas, that kind of new ways to look at things, help students think about topic from a different angle. It's game-like, but it's fun, yes. And then for writing, do a diamante poem, and then this is the conventional format is like noun, adjective, verb, noun, verb, adjective, noun. So you like a diamond, and then you can do a creative format all about me, and then using the structure, using the words that are meaningful to our students, that build confidence and also resilience in challenging times. And they feel, wow, I can do a poem. That is something that they feel they achieved. Another thing is Padlet. Padlet has a lot of uses, and we use a lot in Padlet. Because last year I facilitated the faculty summer institute, Great Teachers Summer Institute, and we did the warm-up, a name tag activity, a dynamic me. It was so inspiring. I was so empowered and also inspired by all these creative ideas from this faculty and then members. Another one is called Raft. Have you heard of Raft? Raft is role audience format topic. It's a writing across the curriculum pedagogical framework. Very, very helpful. Very engaging. It's a high-level strategy that encourages writing using critical thinking and creative thinking. You can encourage students to assume a role, like in writing. A role that could be a flower or a body part, depending on what you teach, or anything, a virus you could be. Now we talk about COVID. And then you consider their audience. Could be a tree, a doctor. A virus could be talking to a vaccine. Let's see how that's going to happen. And then write in a particular format, a letter, a poem, a skit, a poster, or you can do an essay or debate or speech, and then you examine a topic from a relevant perspective. That's called Raft. Audience, a role audience format topic. Here is the Raft for mathematics class. Look at the whole number talking to the fractions and all these things. You can do that. And also, here are some sample roles and audience you can do. Agencies, athletes, cartoonists, pen pal, historical figures, poets, plants, body parts, binoculars, and then the musicians, artists, branches of government, or politicians, authors, heroes, villains, Germans, and various, whatever you can think. That can be either a role or an audience. And the format, there are so many different kinds of things you can do. Blogs, brochures, interviews, journal entry, anything. And then you see the writing becomes all of a sudden so alive, so creative. Students have to use a lot of critical thinking skills to complete their project. They love it. This is the templates that I use for my students to do that. They first identify, you give them a writing task or a project that they need to do. That's the project. And then they think about their role they like to take who will be the audience? Doesn't have to be the teacher, always to be the audience. What kind of format, what kind of topic, and then they start their writing project. Another one that I want to share, give me 1 second. It's really help to increase equity and academic success. It's called a TILT, Transparency in Learning and Teaching. It is an equity tool, very innovative project to close equity gaps and integrate 21st century skills in learning. Definitely critical thinking skills, it's integrated, it's essential part of this. This is a national project in the United States. Our Washington state is one of the participating states of the project. This is the logo for TILT Higher Ed. And this is Washington, we call it WA211 TILT. Let me explain what does this 211 stand for. Before I do that, I'm going to explain what is TILT. TILT is very doable. Its educators make intentional changes to 2 documents that you give to your students. Could it be assignment? Could it be a project instruction? Could it be examinations or whatever? But you need to change it. You need to make sure you have these 3 key ways to improve transparency. These are the 3 key components you need to have. The first is purpose. The purpose includes what are the knowledge students will learn from doing this assignment? What are the skills will be practiced by doing this assignment? Those knowledge and skills not only just important for students to complete this assignment for your course 5 years from now. Why that is important? The transferable skills that students need to know. And then you need to have a clear task, what to do, what not to do, and then the criteria. Identify what success looks like. You can do rubrics, checklists, or examples, whatever. So how's my time? I'm okay?
Perfect.
Good,
Go ahead.
thank you. Yes, these are the 3 components. Now, based on these transparency criteria, I want to ask you, how transparent do you think your assignments at this moment that you give to your students? If not, I hope that you can go back and make some tweaks, changes, intentional changes to include them. And then you will see how much engaged your students are willing to complete that assignment. This is adapted from one of my colleagues, and then talk about, when we talk about purpose, which includes knowledge and skills, you can see the components you need to have. That needs to have really real world connection, career connection, school performance, larger concept connection, how this addresses learning outcomes for the class and for the activity, the course learning outcomes. All this needs to be included. Here is the TILT templates, purpose, tasks, criteria. This is the framework. I'm going to show you, we don't have time to do breakout room sessions. I'm going to show you an example that from one of the faculty members, the less transparent version of the assignment. This is biology assignment, and then you don't have to do the breakout room discussions. So, and I want you to take a look at, I'm going to show you in the next slide, what is the purpose of that assignment? What knowledge or skills will the students gain from doing this assignment? How does this assignment align with the learning outcomes of the course? How or why will this be important to you as a student 5 years from now? Because now you're a student, you're taking this biology class. Here's the assignment. Can you answer that question? What is the purpose for doing this assignment? What are the knowledge and skills that students will gain from doing the assignments? Can you see that happening here? You can type in chat. How would you know doing this assignment is important to you 5 years from now? Can you tell from this assignment? That's very typical. Teachers give assignment like this, 3 questions and something, and then let students do. Probably not, right? Let me go take a look at the chat. Okay, there are some questions which I'm going to address later. Thank you. Now, let me show you another one. This is the one that this faculty member, this professor, took the tilt train, and then same assignment, he tilted. Clearly has the purpose. What's the purpose of this assignment? So what are the skills that student will gain, develop from doing this assignment? What kind of knowledge student will gain from doing the assignment? The tasks, 1, 2, 3, and then there are some notes about certain terminologies, and then where to find the reference. And then the next one, criteria for success, provided examples, and then the things and for student to do. So between this assignments and then the one that's tilted, which one you think will engage students more? They will be more willing to complete, to do this. Apparently this one, because they will see the relevance of the assignments to their life and to the course to do things. So the study findings that, it's a lot easier for students to focus on the assignments and use their critical thinking skills to complete this assignment to the best of their knowledge. You just tilt 2 assignments in one course, in 1 quarter or semester. Seems to have a huge impact to all students. This is the research results. They studied about 1,800 students and 35 faculty members. Qualitatively, statistically significant increase in academic confidence, sense of belonging, and gaining employer value the skills, because they feel by doing this, they have gained the skills for their future. Quantitatively, students who receive the transparent assignment had 13 to 15% higher retention rate, not just 1 year, 2 years later. They really developed those skills, including critical thinking skills, 21st century skills. This is the study that the Marianne Winkler, the principal investigator and also the developer of this TILT project, and that the research. The study finding further confirmed assignment design actually is an effective equity strategy. The gain is even greater for underrepresented students, systematically non-dominant populations, students from lower economic background, students from remote areas, first-generation college students, and then a student from non-native English or other countries, and then all these disabilities and underprivileged classes, especially during the first year of university study, when the greatest number of students drop out. After first year, they couldn't survive, they drop out. In the parallel study by University of Nevada, Las Vegas, they studied a student, 90.2% of students in the tilted program returned the next academic year. In comparison with the average retention rate of the university of first year student, 74.1%. It's a great retention. So start small, just 2 assignments, 1 course, 1 semester, you can achieve 90.2% retention rate. And then students demonstrated not only much greater critical thinking skills and also the sense of belonging, the academic confidence, and also employer value the skills they feel they have developed. They can articulate their learning needs, articulate the purpose, knowledge, skills much better than a lot of students who didn't receive a TILT training. We have been doing TILT training for faculty members. We've seen also significant improvement in student performance. And the faculty even told me TILT for life. Here are some sample publications in critical thinking, 21st century skills. These are the books. And then culture sustaining pedagogy. It's a wonderful book. This is the one, culturally responsive teaching and the brain. I highly encourage you, if you can, really get a copy of all these books. Very, very helpful. And then, so I'm going to end my talk. 21st century education. It's about learning about learning. We are all learning about learning. About using critical thinking for constructive changes. We really have to focus on equity. Using critical thinking to look at the inequality gaps and then trying to bridge those gaps. Developing teachers as critical, reflective, and resilient educators. And it is about building academic rigor to close equity and achievement gaps for all students to succeed. Thank you. That is the end of my talk. So,
Thank you so very much, Dr. Yilin. It was a wonderful and powerful talk. I thank you again for your presence at TD Webinar's anniversary. And now the floor is open for questions and answers. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat box. Dr. Yilin will take your questions. So, while I was looking at the questions, most of the questions talked about how can we cultivate or motivate our students for, critical thinking.
Yes. Any questions? Yeah, I think it's about an hour. So thank you. Thank you for your encouraging comments. Let me take a look at some questions.
Sure.
Here. Amazing, amazing. Oh, you have the feedback. Thank you. Any questions? Okay, there's one question. Promoting critical thinking activities through real life situations in the classroom provides both practice and understanding. How do we promote such activities that may enhance critical thinking skills? I shared some strategies and I shared some suggestions for activities. I hope that will be helpful. You can try that, and then that will maybe you will find the answer. So thank you so much. And
yes. So another question from Brain. She asked that is there a link between equality and equity in critical thinking process?
Right now, okay, is there a link between equity and then critical thinking process? We need more
equity,
research.
Yes, between equality and equity in critical thinking process.
Right now, there's not, because it's new. This is something new. I hope more research will be developed in this field, and then trying to, to demonstrate that really there is a direct relationship between equity and also the level of critical thinking skills that the student will demonstrate as a result of achieving equity. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And then again, yes, and then a list of questions about how can we implement critical thinking in a virtual mood or in our online classes. I think you have shared some of the ideas and some more if you would like to address.
There are a lot of things you can do, and we don't have time to show. There are so many things you can do critical thinking, even for now. And then you can, okay, think about a question that really can demonstrate your critical thinking skills. Find something from my presentation that is missing that could be further developed. That is another way. We teachers have to be open because faculty member, we're not perfect. We are also developing. Offer some, constructive feedback. How can we improve this? What are the things that, can be further strengthened? This is also the way for you to identify your research project. I see there's a gap here. And then Yilin mentioned some ideas that really opens my horizon to look at the research from a different perspective. There are so many other ways we can do research. And then find a way, find the things, okay, I see this part is missing. Perfect. That is the angle for you to start your research project. You can do groundbreaking research in that way. Yes. Be brave,
Wonderful.
be courageous,
Wonderful.
and be creative. Yes.
That's
Thank
good.
you so much. I want to take a picture of everybody. Could I have
Sure.
the gallery view? I don't have the gallery view.
So in the last, we'll take picture and, how to help students to think critically in an environment which doesn't support such a way of thinking. Asked El Habib from Morocco.
Okay, excellent question. This is the question I was anticipating. In the environment you perceive as not encouraging critical thinking, how can we help students foster, demonstrate that critical thinking? When we talk about the critical thinking, it's the critical thinking question. It's a perfect one. And in an environment that, not encouraging, actually critical thinking has so many different interpretations. You are talking about the environment that not encouraging people to be challenging certain sensitive issues, or you are talking about the environment that everybody has to think the same, do the same thing. I see these are very different questions. If you think it's an environment, make sure everybody conform to one idea, one answer, one way of doing things. In that situation, you can still create ways. That one idea, one way of doing things. Let's find out a different angle to find that one way of doing things. What is this one way of doing things? Anything we can further improve this one way of doing things. The way, is that really the way of doing things? And also another thing, you can always bring out the equity issue, because all societies are concerned about the harmony, about the society's stability, about the well-being of everybody. If you bring that issue into play, that will make that one way, the conformity, different. How can we make everybody be successful? You want to conform with that. What are the ways we can do? In our class, we have students from this background, that background, this channel, that channel. How can we find a way to bring everybody successful? Everybody feel welcome, valued in our classroom. That's also trying to bring the conformity, but very different. And also, if you are talking about not challenging certain social political issues, that's a different thing. That's a very different idea. Because if you do that, you have to take certain risks. If a society doesn't encourage that, like there are some systems we're familiar. I was born in China. So in certain issues, you just cannot discuss. But that doesn't stop students developing critical thinking skills. Critical thinking is not ask everybody to overthrow the society, overthrow the government. That's very different. That's not critical thinking. That's rebellion. That's some other thing, right? Critical thinking is how can we make this society better for everybody. to make this society more equitable for all people, to create more opportunities, to make our country further developed, more advanced. So these are the things. If you can have this, and then you will have much less problem for, oh, I cannot touch critical thinking because I'll be in trouble. You can always find a different angle, different way to approach problems. You can talk about environmental issues, sustainability, look at the pollutions, look at how many people suffer from cancer. This issue, everybody is concerned, and find the ways what we can do. So those are the things that we can talk to address critical thinking, to talk about issues, to help students. Because ultimately, every society want to have more successful students, want to have schools, graduates, more students, not just the elitist and then the underclass. That's not society wants. No government wants that to happen. So this is something that we can think about it. And then you can form a learning community, a group of teachers. I think this is a wonderful, like a professional development webinar. You can form some learning community just to follow up on some of the ideas that you can use. Sometimes by one person might be hard, but if you have more teachers, like-minded educators, you are willing to work together online regularly and talk about issues, develop ideas, develop curriculum materials and things, and then you will find so much rewarding, performances and things, amazing things from your students. I'm always so overwhelmed by the amount of work, that amazing work the students produce. I thought they would not be able to do this. I don't have time to show samples. Those students they produce, it's beyond my expectation. Once they are motivated, nothing could stop them. This is something. And also, don't be shy to share your own learning experience, how you develop, demonstrate critical thinking skills. Share your story. Personal story is always inspiring, and then your students would love that. Yes. Thank you so much. So
Wonderful.
thank you
That
so
was
much.
so
for being
profound.
here. Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's an honor.
So would you like to get some more questions, or we can end here?
Pardon?
So would you like to take some more questions? We
No,
should
I
end
think
here.
we need to end here now. Now it's almost 12 midnight my time.
Okay.
So
Yes,
yeah.
it is.
So I
yes, I
had
know
a
it's.
long day. I started 8:30 this
Mhm.
morning. Had a 2 long meetings.
Yep.
So yeah.
Thank
I'm
you so
going
very much,
fast.
Dr. Yilin. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate your participation and this support. It was a wonderful webinar. We have list of questions and almost, people from 6 continents attending this anniversary webinar. And I'm really overwhelmed by the response everywhere. People can, type in the chat where they are joining from, and a similar kind of response on our Facebook. So thank you so very much for joining us today. I've shared the feedback link, and this feedback link will result in your certificate of participation. So we can generate 100 certificates per day. So if you're not able to generate your certificate today, you can try 24 hours later, and you may get, your certificate this way. And let me tell you, this recording will also be available on Teacher Development Webinars YouTube channel. And for our future webinars, you can always visit our social media channels. We're available on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and of course, a YouTube channel. So thank you so very much. I really appreciate your participation.